The war in West Asia is heating up. America and Israel are not just attacking military targets, even nuclear facilities are not off limits anymore. However, repeated attacks on the Bushehr nuclear power plant might have inadvertent consequences for US soldiers as well. One of the staff members at the Bushehr power plant was killed when a projectile struck the site on the 4th of April. A building on the premises was affected by shockwaves and fragments. Subsequently, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and the country's atomic energy chief, Mohammad al-Sami, shot off a letter to the UN, flagging a grave risk of radioactive contamination. They warned that the repercussions will not be restricted to Iran alone. Public health and ecological balance of the wider Gulf region can be endangered. This matters as the Bushehr power plant is much closer to the Gulf countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar and the UAE than Tehran. For instance, Tehran is located over 750 kilometers north of Bushehr, whereas Kuwait is barely 240 kilometers away. Similarly, the distance between this power plant and Bahrain's capital Manama is just 400 kilometers, and Qatar's Doha lies 450 kilometers to the south. With the US having multiple bases in these countries, American soldiers will obviously be at great risk of radiation exposure if the Bushehr plant is destroyed. International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi has called for a stop on the attacks targeting nuclear power plants. He has warned that continued military activity near this plant could cause a severe radiological incident with harmful consequences for people and environment in Iran and beyond its borders. Last year, remember, he had told the UNSC that measures like evacuation have to be taken within a radius extending up to several hundred kilometers in case the Bushehr nuclear reactor is hit. Now, why is this Bushehr power plant so vital? Let's tell you. It is Iran's first and only operational nuclear power facility. Completed by Russia back in 2011, it is central to Iran's civilian nuclear energy program, as its pressured water reactor generates up to 1,000 megawatts of electricity. In 2019, Iran started a project to add 2 additional reactors to this site. Since the beginning of the West Asia war, it has been hit 4 times. On the 17th of March, the IAEA confirmed that a structure located 350 meters from the Bushehr plant was hit and destroyed. Then on the 24th of March, a projectile hit the premises of the Bushehr plant. Russia, which operates this facility, claimed that the plant's pumping station came under attack. It was again attacked 3 days later. The latest attack on Bushehr has also sparked Moscow's concerns. Russia's state nuclear firm, Rosatom, in fact, has evacuated 198 more personnel from the site, reportedly in coordination with the IDF. Prior to this, 163 staff members were already sent back to Russia. Iran retaliated to this aggression on the 21st of March when its missiles managed to breach Israel's air defense systems and struck Dimona, which is believed to host a nuclear facility. At least 64 people were injured in this attack. Now, with the American president threatening to destroy Iran's bridges and the power plants, it is clear that the threat of nuclear escalation cannot be taken lightly. An admission from US President Donald Trump is now putting the spotlight on a failed shadowy operation inside Iran. Remember, Trump says that Washington secretly sent weapons to Iranian protesters via the Kurds, but those guns may never have reached their target. In an interview, Trump claimed that the United States, in his words, dispatched a lot of guns to Iranian demonstrators through Kurdish intermediaries. But the plan appears to have backfired. The American president said that he believes that the Kurds held on to the weapons instead of delivering them to the protesters on ground. Several Iranian Kurdish opposition groups have now reportedly denied the American president's claim of actually arming them. In fact, just a short while back, while speaking at the White House Easter egg roll, Trump said that guns were sent for Iranian people, but certain groups kept them. He also added that he was very upset and, in his words, the groups are, quote, going to be paying a big price for that. Now, the Kurds, remember, are an ethnic group consisting of around 25 to 30 million people spread across Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Syria and Armenia. They don't have an independent state and have formal autonomy in northern Iraq. Now, Trump's revelation is raising more questions than one because, remember, it suggests that even as American diplomats were engaged in talks with Iranian officials, a parallel covert operation was underway, one which was aimed at arming dissent within Iran. Across Iran, remember, protesters took to the streets starting December last year, angry over soaring inflation, corruption, and a collapsing currency. Those protests quickly spread across more than 100 cities, marking one of the largest waves of unrest in Iran in decades. Now, remember, at the time, Trump had publicly backed these protesters, promising that help was on the way and warning Tehran of severe consequences if the crackdown continues. However, it was never disclosed back then that his administration may have tried to arm those demonstrators as well. Now, his latest statement suggests that the operation failed before it could even begin. Remember that one of America's war goals was to spur an uprising against the Iranian regime, and that has not materialized. Instead of a revolution, thousands of Iranians continue to rally in support of the government and not against them. Earlier this year, reports had also claimed that the CIA was exploring options to support the Kurdish militias as a way to spark a broader uprising against the Iranian regime. Those discussions were set to follow contacts with Kurdish leaders based near the Iran-Iraq border, with Israeli networks allegedly helping facilitate those connections. So with these new claims, an important question now emerges. Did a secret American plan to fuel dissent collapse before it even began? Or did it just simply fall into the wrong hands? A group of amateur astronomers has heard a signal from 25 billion kilometers away, confirming that NASA's Voyager 1 is still transmitting signals from the outer reaches of the solar system. Our next report tells you how the spacecraft is whispering back from the outer reaches of the solar system.
In a vast, silent expanse of deep space, stars flicker and a faint golden speck drifts endlessly into darkness. Over 25 billion kilometers away from the Earth, beyond Neptune and Pluto, beyond the Sun's protective embrace, in the cold silence of interstellar space, a faint whisper, barely detectable, has stunned astronomers. A signal from Voyager 1, a spacecraft launched nearly half a century ago. It sends its engineering signal at 8.4 GHz, which is far less forgiving for an old metal mesh dish. For decades, only NASA's Deep Space Network handled this kind of listening. But for the first time, a team of amateur astronomers using the historic Dwingaloo radio telescope have managed to detect the ultra-faint carrier signal, a gentle reminder that Voyager 1 is still talking to us from the interstellar space. Voyager 1 is an engineering marvel of 1977. Built on technologies that are considered primitive today but were chosen for their rugged reliability against cosmic radiation and extreme temperatures. Voyager 1 operates with less computing power than a modern digital watch, yet it remains the most distant human-made object in space. Built at a time when computers filled entire rooms, when memory was measured in kilobytes, not gigabytes, its total memory is less than a single image one would send on WhatsApp today. In contrast, a smartphone has nearly 200,000 times more memory. NASA says Voyager 1's 3 nuclear-powered generators are steadily fading. Engineers at the space agency have begun turning off instruments one by one to keep the essentials alive for as long as possible. But Voyager 1 is whispering back. It is no longer just a spacecraft. It is a time capsule, a survivor drifting through eternity, carrying our story into the unknown. Bureau Report, WION World is One.